All right, so welcome to Dr. Carp Society Mission. Now, I'm going to start with biology, but just a recap of the salient points or the points that you should take note of when you are reading. We'll look at the simple way to be able to remember the point when you're studying the flowering plants. Okay, so when you have a flower, okay, how you can be able to grasp all the terms and then be able to apply them in answering your questions. So let's assume this is the root system. Okay, so usually for the plant you have the root system and then you have the shoot system. Okay, so the shoot, the stem, and all that above the ground, and then we have the root system which will be in the ground there. Okay, we have the tap root, it's a root cap, and then the root tip, or the root tip. Okay, then we have the other branches arising from that. Of course, sometimes they may shoot up into the air, become more aerial, and then you may have the variations of the root, either for storage of food, and so on. Then you come to the stem too. Sometimes the stem may not be above, it may rather be horizontal to the ground, and then the roots will also be coming up. Okay, to the extent that sometimes the stem itself is also in the ground, and then it's the part where the food for the plant is stored. Okay, so just briefly, let's look at how the flowers are converted into fruits. Okay, of course, remember the point is the fruit is formed from the flowering wood, or it's formed from the flower. That is the main thing. So the flower, if you have the flower, that's the base of flower. For whatever reason, base of flower, okay, that becomes the fruit. Okay, but what becomes the fruit is the flower itself is like the sex organ of the plant. Okay, it's the sex organ of the plant. So it will have a male part and it will have the female part. The male part we have it called the stamen. Okay, and at which we have the anthers and the pollen grains. Okay, we have the filament. Okay, supporting it, and then we have the pistil, which is the female part. Okay, or the carpel and all that. Okay, so that one too, we have the stigma. We have the star. We have the ovary, which contains what contains the eggs. The eggs are what we call the ovules. The ovules. Okay. So basically, this is how the plant system is like. Okay, we're going to look at how now this whole plant is what the ovary is what becomes the fruit after the ovules have been fertilized by the pollen, which are more or less the equivalent of sperm. Okay. So in the case of a maize, for instance, the flower is down there, and then you have the male part on top. More or less showers the pollens, okay, and then they will fertilize the various stigma. Okay, and then they will go into the knobs. Okay, so you have this one. Okay, each of them will have a stigma. Okay, falling, fertilization becomes the seed, and then you have a lot of them. Of course, we have a lot of pollens up there, the pollen. Of course, so here we have the ovaries, a lot of them here, and the inflorescence stock. Okay, inflorescence stock. Okay, so that is exactly what we are going to discuss. So this is just a brief analogy of what is happening. We're going to talk about it in details now. Right. Now let's start with the leaf. We'll start with the leaf, then which is modified to become the flower. Okay, and the flower is also changed to become the fruits. Okay, so this is what we're going to discuss now. Okay, so it's important. Let's look at the leaf. Okay, so how the leaf system is. Okay, now assume this is our stem, as we are getting to the stem. So and then let's assume this is representing the branch. So we can have this part, which is the point we are going to describe soon, either linked to the stem directly or it's linked to the branch. Okay, right. So in this case, we can have let's say we're talking about the leaf now. Okay, right. So the leaf usually will have what we call the first part. Let's call it the petiole. And then can have a small part, its portion modified to become the petiole. Okay. Right. So at this point, the leaf can then join. Okay, and then join. Now just remember the actual leaf will have something here, some small leaflets or leaves we call the stipule. So you can say it is stipulated or not, or it is a story, it is stipulated or not. Okay, so that is one term you know. So these are small leaves like that, and then you can have a bud here. So this is the bud, right? So at this point where we have the petiole, okay, the leaf can start. Now when you have the leaf can have one blade, that is the flat structure. Okay, can be one or can be two or more. Okay, when it is one, we say it is simple. When it's two or more, we say it is compound. Alright, so these are the terms. So let's see how it is. And then there are other variations, other classifications that will come depending on how it is attached or not attached. So sometimes instead of the leaf attaching to this stalk, which is called the petiole, it may be attached directly to the stem. In that case, there's no stalk. No stalk. Okay, and that is called the sessile. Okay, the sessile. Depending on what sessile leaf or what you are describing. Okay, so sessile means no stalk. Okay, it just says from the word ses, which is the original word means to sit, to sit directly on without any stalk. Okay, so sessile. So this so those that will be connected directly to the stem without any stalk. Okay, we call the sessile leaf. Right. So this one is at this point we are going back to what we were discussing. So the true leaf will have the stipule here. We have a bud here. This bud is going to grow to become another structure or another petiole or another petiole or petiole, and so on. Then you have the branches on. So it's another potential branch that can give rise to the other structures. Right. Now, at this point, so the leaf can just join as one like that. Okay. If it is just one, then it is simple. Okay. Now, in other leaves, you will not have it just being one. It will be compound. That means multiple. So we can have what we call pinnate, like feather. The feather of the bird. Okay. We pinnate. Okay. So it will have branches. So we are not going to have branches. The branches can come in this one. So either you have this one, or you have it in branches. Maybe there'll be branches and so on and so forth. Now let me just go over this so that we get it clearly. So we're going to have one of the branches. So either it is fixed directly to it like this, Okay, so this will be simple. Or you have the branches coming in. The first branch we'll call the rachis. Next we'll call the branchiole. Okay, then we end up finally what we call the midrib. Okay, so you can have so at this point you can have branching coming in. So you can have the rachis, you can have the brachiole, have the midrib. Okay, so these are, so once you start having branches, it means you are going to have more than one leaf or one leaf blade. Okay, and because you are going to have more than one leaf blade, then it becomes compound. Okay, right, so that will give you the various type of compound leaves that you can have. So now the compound leaves, like we said, can be pinnate or pinnate leaf, or it can be palmate. Okay, like palm. Okay, so here in this case it's just like your palm. You see they are joined together, or pinnate like the feather. So this is like the feather. So a lot of branches, but this we have no branch, just growth that's in. Okay, and then we have what this is like the palm, from the word palm. Okay, right, so those ones that come. So you can have multiples of that. So more branches. So from here you can have, if there's just one branch, that will be primary, like the secondary, tertiary. So under just one branch, you may have it like that. And then just one branch, of course, you can have if the terminal, if let's say this is the stalk and the leaf is here, if it is at the terminal end, you can't add new leaves. This will be the oldest leaf. Then the rest can just join from the sides. Okay. Now if it's not terminal, if it's like this, and then you can still have going up those. This will be the old ones, and then they'll be going up. Right. So sometimes it will be odd number. For example, if it's terminal like that, it will be odd, and if it's not terminal, you have an even kind of number. Okay. So then we say we have what you call the unit. That is just when you have one branch. You can have bipinnate. You can have tripinnate. Okay. So when you have just one branch, two branches, three branches, then all that kind of thing can come in. Right. So these are, you can look at it as, so first you have the petiole, then the branching will start coming. The first branch, if it's just one branch, you have the rachis. Okay, if you have two from the rachis, if you still have some branches, then the brachiole. Okay, and then you come to the leaf itself. Right, so for instance, that means if you have a petiole here, and then you have, this can be your pinnate. Okay, this is going to give you with this, and that's going to get what your bipinnate, tripinnate. Okay, the leaf. So this is going to give us a picture. So if you always have the mind that this is how the leaf is classified, because the flower that we're going to talk about is a modified kind of that's a modification of the leaf. Okay, it's a modification of the leaf that is going to give us the flower. So if you know the flower, if you know the various classifications of how the leaf is formed, you can just translate that or extrapolate that to give you some idea about how the flower itself is also going to be formed. Of course, from the flower we're going to form what the fruits. Okay, right. So let's use the same principle to talk about the flower. Right, so now let's see the same principle for the flower. Okay, so we can have the flower that can also be joined just straight away to the stem or to the branch, or we have the stalk of the flower itself. Okay, so if we have the stalk of the flower itself, let's see how that will go. Right, so here, corresponding, going to have the peduncle, then we're going to have that's our petiole, okay? Petiole. So we're going to have what we call the pedicel. Pedicel. Okay? Right. Now we have the small leaves here, which we will call the bract. Okay? We have the bractlets too, that is smaller one. So we have the bract here. Okay? Of course, once you have that, then the kind of this thing should come around that one. Okay, so here the flower itself, okay, can also be attached to from this point, okay. But usually you have your receptacle coming in here. Okay, and then you may have the stalk, the inflorescent stalk. Okay, so and this is where from here you have your ovary coming in, your ovary with what the ovules. Okay, right. So this is the picture you can look at. So the peduncle to the pedicel, that's a very short stalk. Okay, then you come to the receptacle. Then beyond that, but beyond the receptacle, you can have the various parts of it. So you come to the inflorescence. Okay, so the inflorescence is the group, referring to the group. Okay, the group of flowers coming together. Okay, now usually from the receptacle, you have your other ones coming in. Now let's look at this. Right, so you have your receptacle, then before the stalk of the inflorescence stalk, of course, you have your sepals, your petals, okay. If the two are coexisting, then you call them tepals, okay. So the sepals, they are the leaves, they are more or less green, and the petals are the colorful ones, okay. If they are, the two are mixed or put together, then they are called tepal, okay. Right, so from them you come to your stalk for your ovary containing the ovules, okay. Right, so and then of course on top of this we have our stigma of our star going to the ovary. Then on each side we have the anthers with the pollen grains, equivalent of sperm. This is the filament, okay. So this is the male part and this is the female part, right? So this is the stigma. It's sticky. Stigma is sticky, and then so the pollen grains fall on the stigma, and then they go through the tube down to the ovules, okay. And this is called the stalk. That stalk is called the star. Okay. So we should know that this is the female part, this is the male part. Okay. So basically, this is how the flower is going to look like. So we said the flower gives rise to the fruit. Okay, and this fruit also has seeds. So let's put seeds here. We'll talk about seeds too. Right? We'll talk about seeds too. So at least you have 4 things to talk about before we start the actual thing. Right? So at this point, when you have all this, so you have your stalk in all forms, okay, to receptacle. So the receptacle is what is holding the flower itself. Then you have the sepal, the leaves. The leaves are changing from green to colorful ones. Then you come to the female and then the male part of the flower, okay, the flower. Okay, so like we said, if it is just one, then it's simple flower. If it is more than 2, If you have more than two joined, okay, you have more than two on the same stock, then that is a compound kind of flower. That is into the using the definitions that we use for the leaf, okay, then it will look at that, okay. So if there's no stop, if it's just connected straight away to the stem, then we use those same term, the sessile, okay, so on. So we see that there's a correlation. You can look at this and then that can look at that in the same direction. So sometimes from here, if we have only one flower, okay, and then we have one ovule fertilized, then you're going to have what? One seed. You're going to have one seed, because that seed is the fertilized what? Ovule, okay, so it's just one seed. That one seed can be kind of fleshy fruit, or it may be dry fruit. Now you come to understand that almost the flower part is becoming all the flower parts become the fruits, okay? And these fruits can be fleshy, or can be what you call the dry kind of. Good. All right. So when you look at it, this one will be wet and then juicy, okay? But why is this one will be dry? Right. That's what we are looking at. Okay. So for instance, one seed, we have just one seed in it, like the drupe, okay? In the case of drupe, we have coconut, and so we have the almond, okay? Or it may be the pome, which is also one, like the apple, okay? So here you can have the drupe. Then you have, for example, like the almond or coconut, okay? You can also have the pome, where you are looking at the apple and so on. Right, so that is one seed. That is, in that case, you have just one flower, okay? Then of course one ovule is fertilized. Now you may have, if you have more than one seed, then it means you have a collection of what flowers on a stalk, okay? You have collection of flowers on a stalk. Now if you have collection of flowers on a stalk, then you can have an example like the maize tree that we talked about. Where the maize is, this is the maize. Let's say this is a flower, and this is a female part, this is the male part with its grains. They will fall on it. A lot of the pollen grains can be made to fall on the stigmas. A lot of them, each connected to the ovule, and then you have a lot of seeds being fertilized to form the maize that you see and eat. Okay, that you see and eat. Okay, so that principle. So here you see that you have a lot of, let's say, a lot of. I'll put into the female plants in the ovary, a lot of them, so on the same stalk, okay? So you can look at the receptacle, having one just receptacle, where a lot of ovaries are on it, okay? Each one will give you seed, that is there, or you can have multiple receptacles, okay? All on the same stalk, or inflorescence stalk. In that case, you're going to have the berry, you're going to have the what do you call them, the bunch of fruits, okay? We're going to have the bunch of fruits, okay? So that you can also look at that. Now when you have this, when you have a lot of the ovules, okay, which are going to form the seeds, okay, all contained within a bigger ovary, then you have multiple seeds in the fruits, okay, right? And then these multiple seeds, of course, you can have one like the berry kind of fruits that we're talking about. So the orange is there, the orange which will have the volatile kind of oil coming out, okay, from its skin. Then you can have the tomato, okay, also being there, okay, they are also kind of what do you call it, the type of berry that you can also have, okay. So you can look at it in that sense. Look at the seeds together, covered by what do you call it, fruit, or you can have multiple fruits with different seeds in each of them. So all that you should remember is a seed is corresponding to an ovule, okay, and then the fruit is corresponding to the ovary, okay, and of course the ovary will give rise to three sections of the fruit. You can have the outer cover, outermost cover, you have the mid portion, and then you have the innermost portion. The outer cover is exocarp. The middle is called the mesocarp, okay? And then the innermost is the endocarp. Okay, sometimes they are all fused together to form the pericarp, okay? Pericarp. Just like sometimes you can have the sepals and then the petals or fruits forming the perianth, the perianth, or perianth, or the collection of the sepals and then all the other parts which are not the female or male. We described earlier. All right, so that will, I think at this point, we have seen the correlation between the leaf formation and their classification as against the flower giving rise to fruits, of course giving rise to fruits and then also giving rise to seeds, okay? So looking at the seeds collection in the fruit, you can tell whether different flowers or the same flower with different ovules being fertilized, okay? Or you have a kind of fleshy fruit to deal with, or dry. The fleshy will be juicy, the dry ones do not have juice, and of course they tend to be either, we also classify the dry ones as dehiscent, I mean dry, or indehiscent. Okay, dehiscent ones, they are dry, so they can best and open to throw their seeds, like the peanut, groundnut, and so on. The indehiscent ones, here the pericarp, the cover of the seed is tightened, is connected to the seed, either partially or whole. In rice, it is whole everywhere, so it is difficult to separate the seed from the cover, outer cover, the pericarp. Okay, and so all these ones you can be thinking about them, right? So at this point, you see that we discussed flower, but we have talked about the fruits and then the seeds as well. So this can be a guide. So the correlation, stalk, you should know the stalk, the branching, giving you, if you have one leaf or blade, then that is a simple leaf or simple kind of fruit. If you have more than one, then you have the compound. So all those things can come in as you discuss. Sometimes the flower can also be described by looking at the position of the petals, petals and sepals, okay? If they are above the ovary, then we say they are epigynous, okay? If they are below it, then they are what? Hypogynous, okay? Then you can also look at the position of the ovary to tell the type of what flower, okay? So it means you can have inferior or superior what flower with respect to the ovary, right? So that is another way to look at. So there are so many classifications. We have the either, so the insertion, whether dry or flesh, and so on. Right, okay. So fleshy. That means when it looks like juicy. Okay, right. So let's look at some terms. Okay, so depending on the level, the first leaf, which is in the cotyledon, that is the two leaves of the seed opening up after germinating. That leaf that you see in the cotyledon leaf. Okay. Then you can have one, the leaf that is not green with scale on it, that is a cataphyll. Okay. Then you can have a leaf with the leaf with the spores are on it. Okay, that will be the spore of field, okay? There's O field, okay? Right, so then you can have the first leaf appearing, okay, as the profile, the profile. Right, so these are terms, okay? So just get the terms, and then when you are doing your MCQs, you can use them too. Then we have what we call some leaves which are shed off in the early part of the plant life, and they are the caducous, caducous or fugacious leaves, okay? And the deciduous will be yearly in that sense, etc. Okay, that will be deciduous. Okay, now some leaves or some the structures may be connected to the roots. That will be radical kind of structure that we're talking about. If it is connected to the branch, that is rama. Then if it is connected to the stem, that is the colline, kind of leaf or whatever that you are structure that you are describing. So these are some of the things. Let's look at more. Let's look at other collection of terms. So let's look at these terms too. So this is the leaf. This will be the edge, the surface. Of course, it's also the blade. So this is the tip. So the tip can be like a tail, as they call it. Can be like this. Tail of that. Acuminate, okay. Can be flat like that. Okay. So you can have the various variations, okay, either in acute angle, obtuse or rectus, and so on. So that's describing the tip. Then can come to the edge. The edge can be serrated, okay, can be in contours, undulating, okay, can be sinus, okay, cellated. So the various forms, depending on what you have been asked to describe, you can get a lot of terms to describe them. Okay. Then even the texture too. Can talk about the texture where we have what we call thick and leathery, like the coriaceous. That is thick and leathery. Okay. So that is one. In terms of the base, the base can be plastic, like this, open in a triangle form. Okay. Right. Falcate